So Democratic lawmakers in Congress will be taking a lot of action today to get the spending bill passed before the end of the week. And many are debating on whether a fourth round of stimulus payments should be added to the next bill.
Senator Joe Manchin not taking any questions, but he has found himself now for a long time in the middle of this ongoing debate over the infrastructure and social spending bills. He's clearly very frustrated with House Democrats who say that they are holding the second bill hostage. On the other hand, he has been the subject of a lot of frustration on the part of House Democrats who think that he and Kristen Sinema hold way too much power. The frustration is everywhere, but the question remains, now what?
And we did endorse the framework. And in fact, we also had a very, very good meeting yesterday of the full CPC after the text was released, which is something that we were asking for the Build Back Better Act. And I'm very happy to say that we are now awaiting negotiations amongst senators on prescription drug pricing and child care and some details on immigration. But the Progressive Caucus, assuming good resolution of those issues from the Senate side, that we will be excited to vote for both bills.
Now on Build Back Better. Today, Democrats in the House and Senate continue making progress on passing President Biden's Build Back Better plan. Last night, I held another round of talks with my leadership team, with the Speaker, with the White House, and with many we are discussing so many issues, including moving forward on prescription drugs. We're moving ahead. We're working through the outstanding details, and we remain committed to getting something big done for the American people. Nobody is getting everything they hoped for in the final deal, but Build Back Better will have things that everyone wanted. Even as we continue finalizing the text, the President's framework already has done very good and important things that will dramatically improve the lives of everyday Americans. It makes historic progress on child care, pre-K, fighting climate change, providing tax cuts for the middle class, housing, and more. In years past, passing any one of these items would have been considered a huge step forward for the country. Now we're working to get them all done at once, and we will continue making progress. The framework's provisions on child care alone would be the largest in American history. Our country's need for child care has grown dramatically since the 20th century. According to the Treasury Department, in fact, the average cost of caring for a young child hovers around $10,000 a year. Many people pay more for child care than they pay for their mortgage. $10,000 a year is simply out of reach for far too many families. And not only do our kids suffer when they can't have somewhere safe to stay, our families suffer when they can't enter the workforce. And ultimately, our country suffers as our economy's productivity is diminished. Build Back Better, with its unprecedented investments to help families better afford child care, would finally provide parents the help they've needed for decades. And that's just one example. American families under this framework will, for the first time, also have access to universal pre-K for 3- and 4-year-olds across the country. It also extends.
In the face of waning revenues during the crisis, the nation's mayors emerged as key fighters in congressional Democrats' corner as they push for billions of dollars in federal funds to be included in a $1.9 trillion relief package. The mayors from both sides of the aisle were ultimately successful in their efforts, as Biden's sprawling crisis legislation, called the American Rescue Plan Act, contained $350 billion for state and local governments. And now, 7 months after Biden signed the $1.9 trillion package into law, and 5 months after getting the first tranche of aid, mayors in some cities are actually taking their time to send the money that they received. And many people are now receiving state stimulus checks and even city stimulus checks. Good news, folks. Do you believe that your state will be doing the same thing? Will you receive a state stimulus check or even a city stimulus check? Do you know? Tell me in the comments down below. And the mayor of Dayton, Ohio told CBS News that this funding helps us to be prepared for the structural changes spread by the crisis. And what can we do to really change how we're providing services and differentiate services because of these enormous changes that the crisis brought our way? And this is what makes this money so helpful. In the city of Dayton, Ohio, it will receive a total of $138 million through the state and local funding that's included in the relief package enacted in March. Still, very little of the money has been committed so far. Whaley said through city officials, those city officials are aiming to have the aid allocated by the end of the year. The city wants to use some of its federal assistance to demolish blighted property and redesign neglected neighborhoods. But it's waiting for final guidance from the Treasury Department to ensure that's allowed. This is your fourth stimulus check update and daily news report, folks. Democrats are now scrambling to fill the details of their social and climate spending plan. That's after Biden's proposal for a scaled-back bill lit a fire under lawmakers who want to see their personal priorities included. The White House had hoped to unify the party by unveiling a new framework for the $1.75 trillion bill, bridging divisions between progressives and moderates, and unlocking the stalled-out bipartisan infrastructure bill that passed the Senate months ago. Instead, Biden set off a high-stakes lobbying effort to try to make changes to the eventual bill, with Democratic leadership urging members to move quickly if they wanted something added or removed. Nancy Pelosi also told reporters the text is there for you to review, and we'll see what consensus emerges from that. Pelosi added in a letter to her caucus that their feedback is welcome and necessary to help get a bill ready on the floor. Now, though Biden and White House officials spoke to congressional Democrats several times about the framework, lawmakers quickly signaled that they did not need to view the outline revealed. Bernie Sanders also said, "What I will say to you is to have the outline of a very significant piece of legislation. I want us to make it better, and I will make the effort along with others." Now, when Democrats can come to an agreement on what will be in the spending bill, it impacts the timing of the House vote on the infrastructure bill. Progressives are pushing for an understanding, potentially including bill text, but Senate moderates, who they worry could otherwise overhaul the White House package. Manchin and Sinema both sounded positive about the negotiations, but neither has publicly said that they support the framework, and they are both at the center of intense lobbying efforts from their colleagues, who want them back, adding additional priorities. Sinema and Jayapal met this week amid the distrust between House liberals and Senate moderates, and Sinema was spotted chatting with Chris Murphy, who has been deeply involved in negotiations. So Democrats in both chambers are engaged in a flurry of negotiations to try to get the ability for Medicare to negotiate pricing into the spending bill. The House version of the legislation included a broad plan, but it faced pushback from moderates. Even a narrow proposal from Representative Scott Peters has run into roadblocks.
I apologize for repeating, Peter, but 17 Nobel laureates on economics said it's going to lower inflation, raise wages, increase competition, create 2 million jobs a year, etc. And so I think that I understand that Joe is looking for the precise detail to make sure nothing got slipped in terms of the way in which the legislation got written that is different than he acknowledged he would agree to. But I think we'll get this done.